There is a book on your grandmother's shelf, and there is a page inside it that an African scribe wrote first. Not a similar idea, not the same theme, the same sayings, in the same order, 30 of them. And before you brace yourself, no. This is not a video about your Bible being fake. It's the opposite. Stay with me, because this one is personal. If you grew up in church, you were handed a book and told this is where wisdom comes from, and you were handed something else, quietly alongside it. The idea that wisdom came to your people, from outside, from somewhere else, later, that your line starts at the slave ship, and everything before that is a blank page. Here is what I'm going to show you today. You have been reading your ancestors your whole life. Sitting in a pew, reading out loud on a Sunday, you were reading a black man's words, and nobody ever told you his name. His name was Amenemope. And by the end of this, you'll be able to open the book you already own and read him for yourself. Before we go in, if you want the rest of this series, subscribe and hit like. That carries it to the next kin who needs it, and send it to one person who grew up in that church with you. That's how we find each other. So who was he? Amenemope, son of Kanakht, an Egyptian scribe, a working man with a job, an official in the granaries, keeping records of the harvest. And like a lot of fathers, he sat down to write something for his son. 30 chapters of advice on how to live, how to speak, how to handle money, how to treat people with less than you. He wrote it somewhere in the range of 3,000 years ago. For most of history, nobody in Europe had read a word of it. Then in 1888, the British Museum acquired a papyrus. It sat there, catalogued, number 10,474. And in 1923, it was finally published. Within a year, a German scholar named Adolf Erman put it next to a section of the Book of Proverbs, and the room went quiet, because this is what he saw. I want you to hear these together. Amenemope first, then Proverbs. Every time. Amenemope opens by telling his son, give your ears, hear what is said, give your heart to understand it. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 17. Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply your heart to my knowledge. Amenemope says, do not move the markers on the boundaries of the fields. Proverbs 22:28. Do not move the ancient landmark which your fathers have set. Amenemope says, do not befriend the hot-tempered man. Do not approach him for conversation. Proverbs 22:24. Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go. Amenemope warns his son about chasing wealth. He says riches make themselves wings, like geese, and fly away to the sky. Proverbs 23, verse 5. Riches certainly make themselves wings. They fly away as an eagle toward heaven. Kin, that is not a coincidence of theme. That is the same image, wealth growing wings and flying, written by a granary official on the Nile, sitting in the middle of your Bible. But here's the detail that settles it for most scholars. Amenemope wrote in 30 numbered chapters. He says so himself. Now go to Proverbs 22, verse 20. For centuries, translators struggled with that verse. The Hebrew word there was awkward. Nobody was sure what it meant. You'll find old translations rendering it excellent things, because the translators were guessing. After Amenemope was published, scholars looked again and read that word as a number. 30. Have I not written for you 30 sayings of counsel and knowledge? 30 sayings, announced in the text, in the section that runs from chapter 22, verse 17, to chapter 24, verse 22. Sitting right beside an Egyptian book of 30 chapters, that it matches line after line. Open a good study Bible tonight and look at the footnote on that verse. This isn't hidden knowledge, kin. It's in the footnotes. Nobody said it from the pulpit, but nobody hid it either. Now the part I owe you. Same as last episode. I could stop here and let you believe something bigger than the evidence. I'm not going to. Here is what this does not prove. It does not prove the Bible was stolen from Egypt. It doesn't. We're talking about one section of one book of 66. About 30 sayings. That's it. Anybody telling you this unravels the whole thing is selling you something. And it isn't truth. And there is a second honest thing. Most scholars read this as Proverbs drawing on Amenemope, because Amenemope is older and the borrowing runs that way. But a serious minority argue both texts drink from an older stream of wisdom moving around that whole region. That argument is not stupid. And I'm not going to pretend it's settled just because one version flatters us more. I'm not going to tell you more than the evidence says. That's not me being careful. That's me refusing to do to you what was done to us. So what is left once you take away everything I can't prove? This. A black African man sat down 3,000 years ago and wrote down how to live with integrity, how not to cheat a man at the scales, how to hold your tongue when you're angry, how to treat the poor, the widow, the stranger. And that writing was so good, so true, that it traveled. It crossed a border. It got copied into the wisdom of another people. And it kept traveling for 3,000 years until it arrived on a shelf in your grandmother's house. You were never outside this, kin. You were never the people who received wisdom late. You were reading your own kin the whole time. So here's what to do with that tonight. It costs you nothing. Open the book you already own, Proverbs 22:17, and read to chapter 24, verse 22. Same words you've read before, only this time you know whose voice is underneath them. Read it as an inheritance instead of an instruction. It reads different. I promise you, it reads different. That's episode 2. Now, I know exactly what the comments are going to say. Somebody is going to write, but Egypt wasn't really African. And you know what? That question deserves a whole episode, because the answer is a story about how a whole continent's history got reclassified in living memory by people who needed it moved. That's episode 3. Until then, tell me below, did anybody ever teach you the name Amenemope? Anybody? That's the whole point. Walk the way with us. Subscribe. Maat is the measure.